Hi all, and we're going to look at friction today. So, what is friction? Friction is a force between two surfaces that are sliding or trying to slide across one another. For example, when you try and push a toy car along the floor, or when you rub your hands together. These are both examples of friction. Friction always works in a direction opposite from the direction the object is moving or trying to move, and it always slows a moving object down. So the amount of friction depends on the materials from which the two surfaces are made. The rougher the surface, the more friction is produced. For example, you'd have to push a book harder to get it moving in a carpet than you would if you were trying to push a book on a wooden floor. Now this is because there is more friction between the carpet and the book than there is between the wood and the book. Friction also produces heat. Now what I want you to do just now is put your two hands together and rub them. Keep rubbing them, okay? And what you'll feel is, after a few minutes, your hands should feel quite warm. So this shows that friction produces heat energy. Now friction can be useful, but sometimes we also want to reduce it. Now friction can be useful when we walk on the pavement, because the friction created between the soles of our shoes and the pavement surface slows us down and stops us tripping over. Similarly, we really want the friction created between our car tyres and the road surface, again to stop cars skidding. Now we've also got useful friction. For example, ice causes very little friction, and this is why it's very easy to slip over on an icy day. But this is very useful for sports such as ice skating, skiing and sledging, where you don't want to slow down. You want less friction, you want to move quickly. Sometimes, however, we do want to reduce friction. For example, moving parts inside a car engine are lubricated with oil to reduce friction between them. The oil holds the surfaces apart and can flow between them. This reduced friction means there is less wear on the metal and less heat energy produced. Now we're going to look at air resistance. Some shapes, known as streamlined shapes, cause less air resistance than others. Airplanes and cars are streamlined so that they move through the air as easily as possible. Now, air resistance is a type of friction between air and another material. So when an aeroplane flies through the air, for example, air particles hit the aeroplane. If I can just show you here, so you'll have invisible air particles hitting that plane. And basically, this makes it difficult for the aeroplane to move through the air, effectively slowing it down. So let's have a wee go at some questions now. What would we say friction is? Well, friction is a force between two surfaces that are sliding. Friction always works in a direction opposite from the direction the object is moving. What does it always do to a moving object? Well, it always slows a moving object down. The rougher the surface, the more friction. What can affect the amount of friction produced? the materials a surface is made from? Can we think of a material that produces very, very little friction? Ice. What type of energy does friction produce? Think about when you're rubbing your hands together. What do you start to feel? Heat energy. Give an example of how friction can be useful. It prevents our shoes slipping on the pavement. And it stops car tyres skidding on the road. Moving parts inside a car engine are lubricated with oil to what friction between them? To reduce friction between them. What is a type of friction called between air and a material? Air resistance. And that's when the air particles slow another material down.